And we find ourselves in the very lucky position of being able to talk more about Fantastic Four and Josh Trank. I've been loving this topic. It's a lot of fun, and if you tend to take it pretty seriously, I could see how some feelings might get stomped. But really, I would just encourage people to keep an open mind and just try to enjoy the ride on this one.
Yeah, it's proper circus Trank. There is no other way of putting it.
We got Fantastic Four opening in a few weeks, and of course Fox has started cranking up their ad machine. Now, it's been a little slow for them, actually, and I'm not surprised. They would actually probably not want to draw attention to this movie too early just because they've got so many pieces moving and there's some controversy here. But of course, now that it is opening in a few weeks, they've got to start their marketing machine if they want to make their money. One thing they have to do, in addition to marketing, is also damage limitation. So they've put out a fluff piece in the LA Times to address all the naysayers, and there's a lot of them, and this was on July 8th. And we can break it down piece by piece for you. The first part here reads, Trank fully expected some diehard fans of the Fantastic Four, whose history in the comics stretches back to 1961, to look at his unorthodox approach and declare it clobberin' time. Ugh, it makes me barf. I knew it was going to get ugly, Trank said. And they mentioned that he's 31, sitting in the film's production office in early June on the Fox lot. But I think maybe there's a part of me that needs adversity from the rest of the world in order to feel motivated to want to prove people wrong.
Oh, this is a great start, because what is so captivating about this piece in LA Times is that it's so filled with self-contradictions. And this right here is one of the first ones, because if he's expecting all of this controversy, then why does he throw a hiss at it when fans react just as expected?
That's sort of an interesting reaction to a prediction that came true. The piece says, the scrutiny has been so intense that Trank says it spurred him to drop out of directing a planned Star Wars spin-off film. It's not healthy for me right now in my life, he said. I wanted to do something that's below the radar. It was the hardest decision I've ever had to make in my life.
Really? So the expected and desired reaction from the Fantastic Four fans prompted him to quit the unreleased and unrelated Star Wars. Right. That's some nice damage limitation there, but we know that he was in fact fired. That has been confirmed from multiple sources. So he only looks stupid when he goes on saying stuff like this, especially when he just said a few paragraphs higher up that he thrived on the controversy. But not too much of it, I guess.
I could almost believe him if he, but I think that the portrait of this man who this is really the way he sees it, if he really did leave this project on his own, which is very unlikely. But let's just say, for the sake of argument that he did, I think this that would show a very damaged individual, and I would just almost hope for him that he's just a liar rather than that damaged.
We'll get back to that a little bit later, shall we say.
Yeah. So regarding the approach of the movie, intrigued by that approach, Simon Kinberg, who has worked on several X-Men films, came on board the project as co-writer and producer. What hooked me was Josh's idea of what the honest reaction would be if you suddenly didn't have control over your body anymore, if you were uncontrollably on fire or invisible, or you were a rock creature, Kinberg said. That just seemed so original in a genre that it's hard to be original in.
And this is yet another example of Kinberg doing what both him and Vaughn has done a lot lately, namely praise Trank, talk about his vision, big up his ideas and all of that. But really, what it seems to me they are doing is some heavy distancing, because they are kind of throwing him under the bus in case the movie fails, setting him up for the fall by essentially saying, this is all on Trank, this is all his idea. We are just being cooperative, supporting the director, but if it fails, it's all on him. That's what I take from that.
And it's interesting, I know I bring things back to this a lot, but this actually reminds me of what Lexi Alexander did herself during Punisher Warzone's promotion period. Now, Lionsgate themselves was actually fairly quiet about that movie, but she did a lot of her own talking and discussion, and she sort of distanced everybody else from the movie as well. She said, this is my vision, and so then when the movie flopped, she of course had set herself up to take all of the blame for the movie. And here we see Fox deliberately doing this to Trank. I think he could wind up in director's jail just as badly as she did.
Or even worse, if anything, because this is so higher profile. Mm-hmm. One thing is that she set herself up for that. Here you have others who set Trank up for the ball. That's even worse, and these are heavy hitters at Fox.
but Trank strenuously disputes the notion that he was difficult or uncommunicative on the set. If you ask anybody by name who I've worked with, from Simon to producer Hutch Parker or my crew or anybody else, they'd be like, "We've been working really hard on this movie and we've had an excellent time working together," he said. "It's all been a challenging movie for all the right reasons."
Well, it's very funny that he would say that when, in fact, not one single person that he mentioned has come out to support him in public, or if anyone has, it's been in these kind of media fluff pieces. But none of the none of the cast members have had anything positive to say about him on Twitter, or in fact anything at all. When news broke that he was fired from Star Wars, no one said anything. No one said good luck. No one said you'll nail whatever you do next. The only one who said anything was the writer from Chronicle, Max Landis, and he said karma. That's hardly supportive right there.
Boom! Trank said his deep-seated impulse to blaze his own path in the face of doubt and criticism has deep psychological roots in his own childhood origin story. Oh my god, his childhood is an origin story. When I was in middle school, and this is I just wanted to warn people, this is a very powerful origin story, and when he was young, Mr. Trank apparently had a very unique power. When I was in middle school and high school, I was over 100 pounds overweight, he said. I had a condition called gynecomastia. I had really big man boobs, and this is his words, word for word, and I got a surgery for it. My whole adolescence was hating myself and feeling suicidal. I was made fun of by a lot of other kids in such a way that I didn't feel like I was human. That fueled my desire to want to prove people wrong by just writing things and shooting things and being proactive. Oh, that sounds violent. Even with a bumpy road Fantastic Four has traveled, Trank insists he wouldn't do anything differently. I made every single choice knowing that people would question it, he said. What better reaction than to have people go see the movie and understand it and feel like maybe they've learned something about the world, to not question the next thing they think is going to be stupid or weird. I think that's my purpose right now in my life.
So in short, oh my god. In short, he is saying that fans shouldn't have their own opinions, shouldn't question anything, but shut up and just learn to like whatever we're given. Because he was a fat kid who needed...
I think what I like so much about this story is that we have actually we find the Fantastic Four have all these little problems with them now, you know, like they're rock creatures, or they can't control their body flaming up, or they can't control their body turning invisible. And it turns out Josh Trank couldn't control his body from producing large man boobs. So really we see he is a member of the Fantastic Four. He understands these characters because of his own fantastic childhood. And by fantastic, I mean unbelievable, certainly not wonderful.
Certainly not fantastic. We should just shut up and learn to like and accept whatever we're given, because Trank was a fat kid who needed man boob surgery. And in essence, he states that it's his purpose in life to take established properties that fans love, change them up simply for the sake of controversy, so we all learn to accept unquestionably the next time someone blatantly disrespects the source material. And then I wonder, should someone with that kind of attitude even be allowed to work on movie adaptations of properties that go back decades and have massive fan bases who want to see those properties treated with respect?
Yeah, you know, he's really kind of coming off as the Rick Remender of the movie world. You know, this is a guy who delighted in basically ruining both Punisher. I think he worked his way around to screwing up Captain America, and it's just for no reason other than he thinks his own ideas are so much more brilliant than what we've actually grown accustomed to and what people have fallen in love with, essentially.
He also comes across as the Tom Rothman of directors. Tom Rothman, of course, is the producer at Fox, whose idea it was to shut the mouth of Deadpool.
Oh, God. I didn't know there was a single person responsible for that.
Oh yeah.
There's no place hot enough in hell for him.
Oh, he was just getting warmed up. That's like on his list of crimes, that's almost nothing. So anyway, yeah, Josh Trank, he kind of seems like Tom Rothman of directors. And also, this is what I find so really condescending, that here we have this 31-year-old kid with all of his life wisdom and life experience is going to show us all the way of the world, to teach us something.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I'm basically the same age. I mean, we're probably from that same year, I'll bet. Even as somebody who is kind of seeing things from that same generation. God, what an asshole.
Yeah, exactly. And also, what is really interesting is that whenever Josh Trank opens his mouth, what he talks about isn't the Fantastic Four or anything like that. It's usually about Josh Trank or Chronicle,
right.
But mostly Josh Trank.
In Chronicle, I mean, I'm sure it was good for, when it came out, but it's just like, is this a movie we're going to be talking about forever? Like, is it worth that?
Yeah, and Josh Trank certainly talks about Chronicle forever. And so do his defenders. They also bring up Chronicle all the time, bringing up that movie didn't direct itself. So Trank must be a great director. But now some new information on that very topic has come to light.
So this is about Jeff Schneider, who is from The Wrap. He was one of the first folks to confirm the rumors that there was trouble on the set of the Fantastic Four. So really, I consider him a hero and a pioneer. But Josh Trank apparently did not take kindly to what Jeff Schneider was doing. So Jeff Schneider actually revealed recently, or at some point, let's see, do you know when that was? I should look at the picture.
1st of May.
Okay.
1st of May.
So like way back in May, Schneider revealed that Josh Trank physically threatened to beat him up, which, in light of what we said earlier, is kind of hilarious and awesome. Anyway, when Trank got fired, Jeff Schneider did not have sympathy for him. This is getting fired from Star Wars, of course. Schneider talked to somebody at Disney about what happened with Trank, and it worked its way through the system and maybe even contributed to Trank getting fired. So the real kicker is that Schneider says that Chronicle was good because of the script, but it had to be fixed in editing, presumably by somebody other than Trank, meaning that Trank himself isn't all that responsible for the success of that movie. So you would hope as the director, he would have the vision and the experience necessary to actually put it on the screen, not just write what the story would be. I mean, that would be the mark of a good writer, but as a director, you shouldn't have to have somebody else come in and take over your project for you.
Yeah, exactly. And this also paints the picture that this isn't the first time that Trank messes up a shoot or the editing so badly that someone else needs to come in and clean it up. And that really does something to this myth of Trank, this young genius who did Chronicle. Well, as it turns out, he might not have been all that responsible for the success of that movie.
Yeah, it's interesting. That was kind of a big special effects movie, right? I mean, at least on some level, there were visual effects that needed to be applied to make it work out. And, it's just funny that they would let somebody... I mean, this was a first-time direction job for him, right, on Chronicle?
It was, yeah, at least of a proper motion picture. And this would also go some way towards explaining that tweet by Max Landis when Trank got fired from Star Wars. He just tweeted karma, because it would appear to be some level of bad blood between them. And maybe Max Landis, the writer, is the one who should be credited with the success of Chronicle first and foremost, because he came up with the story. Josh Trank just pointed the camera and filmed, and someone else needed to make that work in editing. Coming up then, we'll have to see if whoever worked on Fantastic Four afterwards, maybe Matthew Vaughn, is going to be as successful as whoever fixed Chronicle. Who had to be taken away from X-Men to help salvage Fantastic Four? Simon Kinberg, Parker, and Matthew Vaughn. So all three. Possibly Matthew Vaughn, yeah. There was some unidentified person then had to step in and fix Chronicle in post. And what is speculated on the set of Fantastic Four is that Simon Kinberg, Hutch Parker, and quite possibly Matthew Vaughn had to be taken away from the first couple of weeks of filming X-Men Apocalypse to step in and try to salvage the Fantastic Four.
But of course, that's only going to be something we'll see in 2D, not 3D as was originally promoted. So it's being confirmed. We have an article from finalreel.co.uk that it sounds like the Fantastic Four 3D conversion, which was going to be done post-filming, which would not have been probably a great version anyway, has been cancelled. And this is actually something we've heard for several weeks, a couple months even. Ever since any kind of reference to 3D turned out to be absent from the second batch promotional material, that's, you know, the more recent set, there's been speculation that the movie won't be released in 3D. On July 11th, we got the official confirmation that the movie won't be released in 3D. We have a statement from Trank saying, "I want the viewing experience of Fantastic Four to remain as pure as possible for the audience, which means in 2D, just as we shot the movie." Which actually is not that bad a statement. I kind of wish a lot of directors were brave enough to do that. It's just that I don't think that he's accurately describing the process they attempted.
No, quite the contrary. This would have been all good and well if it was said 2 years ago. But when it is said now, just 3 weeks before the movie opens, after it was initially promoted as a 3D movie, that just doesn't paint the same pretty picture. And it gets even worse when we consider what Simon Kinberg said 1 year ago.
And what he said 1 year ago was, we're definitely imagining the story in 3D as we're making it, and it has powers that are well suited to telling the story in 3D. Not just read, but you have somebody that is on fire, and that's something that can be immersive and scary. The reason to use 3D in this Fantastic Four, I think, is to make the experience feel as immersive as possible, where you feel like you're with the characters, looking at themselves and looking at each other with these bizarre powers, and feeling like they're really interacting with you. Oh my god, it's not a video game.
Well, it's 3D, so yeah. And this pretty much confirms what the Oto guy said in the recent 4chan incident. See the hyperlink for our take on that one. That namely that the 3D conversion was scrapped because too much money and too much time was spent on the reshoots. And also, this of course is going to leave quite a dent at the box office, even more so internationally than in the US, because the 3D screenings sell out much more abroad than they do in North America.
Plus they can charge more. I mean, that's just a wonderful incentive to get the audience to pay more.
But of all rumors and claims that were either started or addressed during the 4chan incident, this of course was the least controversial of them and the most expected to happen. Something far more controversial got more or less confirmed at Comic-Con.
On July 11th, 2015, Josh Trank and the cast appeared on stage in San Diego at Comic-Con, which I personally would not have expected given Josh Trank's difficult history with this movie, but maybe Fox is convinced they can turn things around. So first things first, they did not get booed. Marvel wasn't there, and the Fantastic Four panel was actually just one small part of the Fox panel, and they had a ton of Fox supporters in there because it was followed by Deadpool and X-Men, which were coming up. The panel was covered by E. Douglas CS from Collider.com. What we find is that from his live coverage, the Fantastic Four panel comes across as short, uninspired, really staged, and honestly one of the low points of the whole panel. They showed a new trailer which did not show more Doom than we've seen already. Moderator Hardwick asked Trank and the cast clearly pre-approved questions that were pretty toothless. So these toothless questions were, there was just no bite to them whatsoever, and without an opportunity for anybody else to ask any, sort of off-the-cuff questions. This is just a puff panel.
Exactly. There was no audience Q&A session, obviously, because then they might get some uncomfortable questions. For instance, someone might have asked them, like, why is the Thing a eunuch, and how is he going to deal with that? Or will it even be addressed in the movie? Or why is Doom a eunuch too? Any other few things people might have asked them that they don't want asked?
Oh, I mean, I can think of a million about Trank and the history of the filming of the movie. Nobody really wants to answer what actually happened on the set with who the people he was interacting with. Most disastrous question of all would probably be if they had to bring in Matthew Vaughn to reshoot anything.
Yeah, that would have been really embarrassing. And also another horrible question would be if someone asked them, is it true that the whole movie comes more than anything across like a beat-for-beat remake of the 2005 movie, only with some tweaks and darker colors. And based on the recently released track listing for the soundtrack, from which we can kind of like read the story of the movie, that seems to be the case.
So the only new piece of information we learned during that panel was that Trank says that he saw this as his continuation of Chronicle. So what does he mean by that? So if we go back to the 4chan incident, you'll remember that the poster who alleged to be Josh Trank claims that this movie takes place in the same continuity as Chronicle, and that the crystal scene in Chronicle will appear here, and that's what makes Domashev into Doom. This is literally that prophecy that this poster, who may or may not have been Josh Trank, is coming true, lending even more credibility to the fact that that was Josh Trank losing his shit on 4chan.
Yeah, there's really no other way to put it. There was no one else who ever claimed those Chronicle links than allegedly fake Trank on 4chan.
Right.
However, El Mayimbe really confirmed that that was the real Trank, and if this all pans out like allegedly fake Trank says, that really lends credibility to the notion that it was indeed the real Trank all along, which is a scandal that the director would go on 4chan and completely lose it.
That, coupled with everything else we've seen, I mean, it really paints this picture of Trank as someone with an axe to grind with the world, as he mentioned himself in his young man boob story, who seems to thrive on creating controversy, but also is too thin-skinned to deal with that controversy when there's blowback. That's the rosiest picture you could paint. So there's been some more rumors, and we'll get to those, which we'll get to before we finish. We'll just go through the most important ones. First up was Josh Trank the Nail Biter. So a few weeks back, long before the LA Times article broke, someone pointed out from his Shabbat Shalom selfie. What is that? Is that a Jewish dating site?
It would be fantastic if that was the case. No, the Shabbat Shalom selfie is one that was taken in conjunction with this whole 4chan incident. I'm not entirely sure if that's the picture that was used by fake Trank to show that it really was him, or if it was a later picture revealed intended to prove that it wasn't him after all. But anyway, in this picture, this Shabbat Shalom picture, his fingernails are so short, like unnaturally short, and the only way nails are going to look like that are if you bite them, most of the time. And while biting nails sometimes may be a learned childhood stress coping mechanism, it can, according to WebMD, also be a sign of an underlying psychological condition, such as obsessive compulsive disorder, attention deficit disorder, separation anxiety disorder, bedwetting.
Or I like this one, oppositional defiant disorder. Wow, that sounds like some pretty intense shit.
Or any combination of the above.
So if you combine that with a recent LA Times article where he talks about his man boobs, noting that he felt suicidal as an adolescent, and that I'll show 'em all attitude of mad scientists of vintage comics and cartoons, and all the on-set shenanigans, then it just seems to paint the picture that Josh Trank has a lot of personal demons that he needs to work out. His problems could go way beyond his alleged substance abuse.
They could. We have no way of knowing. Like, we can't say that he's a bedwetter, but we can't rule it out either.
I wouldn't rule it out. Following that, we have some rumors that originate from Fox, and one of those rumors is that Bryan Singer is going to take over the directing on Fantastic Four 2. And this is assuming there's going to be a Fantastic Four 2, but they're probably a little more safe than a lot of other movies that are coming out right now. And the rumor goes further to say that they would want to use Bryan Singer to set up a future X-Men Fantastic Four crossover.
And that, of course, isn't impossible, but there are those who speculate that this is just a marketing ploy, that this is Fox trying to sell X-Men fans on the movie, because many inject that it's unlikely that Fox could cross over the X-Men and the Fantastic Four at all, due to them being part of different sets of contracts signed at different time with different conditions. Allegedly, they don't even use the word mutant in the Fantastic Four because that word can only be used in conjunction with the X-Men. Furthermore, we have some rumors that says that Fox allegedly thinks that the movie is okay, it's good enough to build something better on for the future, but it's not the movie they hoped it would be when they greenlit the production.
So we also have another interesting note. This is from Jamie Bell, who actually plays the Thing. He says that there is no post-credit scene teasing the future of the franchise. And the last superhero movie to not have one was The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which instead had an ad for X-Men Days of Future Past in a little Fox and Sony cross-marketing. And we all know what happened after that. It's possible that this is an indicator that the future of the Fantastic Four franchise is not secure at 20th Century Fox. One more rumor is that Fox and Marvel are planning a crossover on film a few years from now, and of course there's nothing to indicate there's any truth to that. On the contrary, the relationship between Fox and Marvel is as bad as ever. We've covered this a lot in our videos that Fox has really done everything they can to step on Marvel's nuts, even though Marvel has clearly been held up as the superior comic book movie company. Could this be a way just for Fox to try and get Marvel Universe fans excited about Fantastic Four?
Yeah, I think so, because we've seen a lot about that lately. Michael B. Jordan, in an earlier interview, also tried to create the impression without outright stating it that this Fox movie was somehow related to the Marvel Universe, but by not outright ruling out that there were no connections between the two. And we also see how Fox is really prominently displaying the Marvel logo in all of their advertising.
I noticed that, yeah.
They're trying to piggyback off the Marvel logo, so that this is then Fox marketing trying to leak this crossover story to try to win over the Marvel fans who might not otherwise go. I do not put past them. One interesting thing to note is how different Marvel and Fox have been in approaching behind the scene problems, because everyone knows how Edgar Wright left production of Ant-Man shortly before that movie was set to shoot, and how Peyton Reed stepped in instead. Marvel was very open with both the problems it caused and the reasons behind it. There were no secrecy, they were just completely open about it, brutally open even. Fox, however, has just been denying everything. Deny, even when it's comical. The only time they admitted to some kind of problem was when their backs were against the wall because Trank had just been fired from Star Wars. Then they admitted it had been a bumpy ride, but that was pretty much it. Still, we have all these rumors that keep on coming and coming and coming from different sources independent of each other, and so many of them get confirmed from fairly reliable sources that there's definitely more to it. And still, Fox keeps on with the nothing to see here, move on, folks.
I've been told there's two schools of thought to how to deal with a controversy or problems behind the scenes for a company. And you've kind of got this Western way to do it, which is to come right out and say it because, supposedly we have no shame, we just want to put the truth out there as fast as possible and shut the whole thing down. And then you have kind of the Eastern way, which I'm kind of told it's sort of an Asian tradition, is to not allow that shame to come upon the company and do everything you can to kind of squelch it. And it's interesting that Fox would take that approach.
I think that what we see here is that Marvel's approach is better, because not many are going on and on at Marvel's at what is happening there and how horrible it is. You have some commenters and some of the usual Marvel haters, but what can they say, which Marvel themselves haven't already admitted? But with Fox, they just look stupid right now by denying the problems. like most people here are adults, or at least smart enough to see through the marketing machine.
It certainly doesn't cater to the fans' intelligence. So in any case, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the world's going to react when this movie comes out August 8th.
In between the onset troubles, the ongoing problems with Trank, and the marketing trying to deny there are any problems at all, it's going to be really interesting to see how the world will react to Fox Studios' Fantastic Four when it is released everywhere. It's been a tumultuous ride so far. We'll cover whatever happens next.
If you liked this video, don't forget to hit subscribe so you can catch all of our upcoming videos. For more podcasts, news, and reviews, check us out at midnightsedge.net and follow us on Twitter at midnightsedge. Also check out our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/midnightsedge.